Okay, just a little addendum from the book Patriarchs and Prophets. This is regarding the fall of Jericho. And this is what she has to say in regard to this 7 trumpets and that halo effect that we were talking about. In page 490, 7 priests with trumpets followed. 7 priests with trumpets, 7 angels. Then the ark of God, surrounded by a halo of divine glory, was borne by priests clad in the dress denoting their sacred office, as opposed to the Babylonian garments that Achan had coveted and hidden, and the whole huge emphasis upon wearing the robes that Christ has given to us, denoting their sacred office, the robes of righteousness, the wedding garment. Now listen to this. I thought this is fascinating. No sound was heard. That's interesting. The silence for the space of a half an hour. We talked about the 15 degrees. But in chapter 8 of Revelation, this is this silence, and then comes the peal of the trumpets. But the tread of that mighty host, this is the sound of the army, or the outpouring of the latter rain, in which God is talking about they are like locusts, and it's Eden before them and desolation behind them. And that's a picture of my armies, that God is going to outpour the latter rain, and it's going to be this huge gospel kind of consumption that's going to happen. And it says that, and the solemn peal of the trumpets echoing among the hills and resounding through the streets of Jericho. The circuit completed, the army returned in their silence to the tents, and what happened? The ark was restored to its place in the tabernacle. That is a fascinating insight into the breakdown of that prophecy. Where was the sound going? Into the hills and all through the streets of Jericho, into the highways and into the byways. God was speaking this great gospel. What she goes on to talk about is the trembling of those that were inhabitants. Some, they were checking their fortifications to make sure that they could withstand this. Others were in fear and awe and terror. And the reality was, this is the picture of the great peal of thunder and lightning and trumpets that go as a great gospel cry of God declaring his call to a covenant with an eternal God who shakes both heaven and earth. What's fascinating is the halo of glory around the ark to get the complete picture that Christ is the centerpiece of this entire march. Now remember, when Jericho was just about to march upon, when Joshua was just about to march on Jericho, who shows up but, quote, Christ, the angel of the Lord, and told Joshua to remove his sandals because the true Joshua was standing before him on that day. That this is about Christ circling. See, it says that the city had closed itself up, or it's the word for sealing, where you get the word to seal. They sealed themselves off from God. They closed up all of their doors. And this picture of how a bride circles a bridegroom on a wedding day is the idea of dominion. God will now circle that city and saying, that's my inheritance, my possession. And so on the day of a wedding, a bride circles her husband saying that this is what I gain, this is my dominion, this is my inheritance, I gain the bridegroom. So this is the very important factor of the silence, and then the ultimate restoration of the ark in its right place. The law of God brings forth the wrath that calls an indictment to this world that God is the King of heaven and earth and all that exists and consists within that. Now, just to clarify that picture that I was trying to show you, is the 7-branch candlestick is 3 angels, 1 angel, 2, and 3. And what it doesn't show is that it's a picture of how light works, how it radiates, how there is a corona or there is a halo of light. Well, these are a picture of 3 lights. These 3 halos are one true great light that has these 3 angels. And it's a picture of this great clarion message that is a picture of the light of both heaven and earth, which is Christ. What we just see down here is the picture that 7-branch candlestick is just those 3 bent sticks and then the one upright, which is always Christ holding them up. That's that 4th angel that holds up the 3 angels. But when you get the light of heaven, when heaven opens up, when we keep on looking until we look towards heaven, we see the complete picture of that halo. And it is a full circumspect view of Christ. Christ is the glory that marches through, and what's happening is he is calling forth alliance to himself because he is that true light of the world. There's no light outside of Christ. Christ is the light. He's the light of the Gentiles. He's the light that lightens the whole world. And that's the point of trying to show the full circumspect, the full circuit of that halo effect was truly that it is not complete until you understand that Christ is the light of both heaven and earth. He's the centerpiece of the entire great loud peal of the trumpets that call forth this trembling in the souls of people to remember that they are now about to meet a God that dwells on the great mountain of Zion, his kingdom, and he's about to bring forth his kingdom, and he's calling forth the self-examination and the call to obey the gospel, to lay hold of him and his righteousness.